This week on Head to Head, Mysteries of the Mandalorian.
You're listening to Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Two fans, two generations, all things Star Wars. Begins now.
Hello, everybody. I'm Eric Vansel.
And I'm Daryl Sanders.
And we're your hosts for this podcast. So the moment has finally come. Well, at least it came last week. And I know this time we couldn't actually watch it together, but Cobra Kai Season 2.
Yes.
Finally came out.
Cobra Kai, do or die.
That's right. So what'd you think of it?
Man, it was awesome. It's absolutely awesome. I mean, you and I talked off mic, earlier today.
Yeah, just now, actually.
Yeah, we were just talking about, and I asked you, what did you think between season 1 or season 2? Which one was the better movie? And you were just basically saying that season 1 was actually better. And I agree with you wholeheartely. But I really, really enjoyed season 2. I think it was a really well done movie. They keep adding new layers and elements to it that make it really more entertaining. The comedy is always great.
It really is one of the best written shows on television.
Yeah, I mean, it has some of everything in it. It has like action, it has comedy, even some heavy drama in there too. So
yeah, it's better than anything I could have even imagined. I remember when they first announced the show, I was like, okay, it almost seemed kind of novelty-like or whatever. But I remember seeing the first season, like, man, this is a really good show. I mean, it's just really well written. It's smartly written. The acting is phenomenal by both the original cast and the newcomers.
Yeah, definitely.
And season 2 definitely amps it up a little bit.
Oh, yeah, man. Especially like the last episode, man. It's just like, wow.
Yeah, it's like where they're going. And as of, I believe, yesterday, we found out that it's been renewed for season 3.
Sweet.
So, they finally got the announcement.
Awesome.
So, I mean, if you guys haven't checked out Cobra Kai yet, you should. And as a note, because I know some of you guys probably don't want to pay for YouTube Red, although I will tell you it's totally worth it. Well, it's called YouTube Premium now. But I would say that it's totally worth it because when you experience YouTube without any ads, it's like a whole new world. It really is, especially if you watch YouTube on, television or whatever. But in September, I think it's September. It's either end of August or early September. They're going to put all the YouTube premium programming out for free for a limited time.
Oh, that's sweet.
So you can watch season 2 of Cobra Kai for free in September. I think it's September. And season 1 will be available as well for free, but only for a couple of weeks. So for all you guys that are kind of like, you know what, I don't know if I really want to subscribe to this or whatever. I mean, you could always do the whole tried and true method where, you subscribe to it, and then when you're done watching it, you just cancel it, and then you wait till next season and do it again. I didn't say that. You could always do it that way. But you know what? I mean, it's just one of those things where it's really worth it to subscribe to it anyway, and it's really not that expensive. All right. Well, you ready to go to the Cantina?
Definitely.
All right, well, let's go in there and have a little drink.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely going to have a drink for this one.
What's going on?
Yeah, man, we have to have a salute drink to one of the icons that unfortunately we have lost in the Star Wars community. The great Peter Mayhew has made his transition to that Kashyyyk planet in the sky, if you will. Peter Mayhew, who's the original actor who played the beloved character Chewbacca, has passed away at the age of 74 years old.
Yeah, that's sad. And it's funny because I believe he was at Celebration.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing some tweets, about how he was excited to see the fans and everything. And, and I remember reading about this myself yesterday, because we record these on Fridays. So, it came out Thursday, May 2nd. That he had passed away, and we're recording this on May 3rd. So I remember reading this yesterday, just absolutely astounded because you never really read. I mean, I knew that he couldn't really walk very well, and I don't remember exactly what was wrong with him.
Yeah, I know he just recently had the surgery to kind of help his mobility.
Yeah, he had some mobility issues, and I remember he had some other stuff like that, but it wasn't like he was sick or anything like that. And then, to just read out of nowhere that he had passed away.
Yeah.
And he had passed away actually a few days before they announced it.
Yeah, and it's crazy. It's like right before May the 4th. Like,
I know.
How eerie and
it makes me sad that he won't see episode 9.
Yeah, that's true.
Because even though, okay, I know he hasn't been, like, The Force Awakens, I think, was actually his last appearance as Chewbacca.
Right.
So he wasn't in The Last Jedi. He wasn't in Solo. You know, he had basically passed on the role. So from that standpoint, I am glad that he didn't pass away until he was able to pass that role on. But at the same time, you know, The Rise of Skywalker is the conclusion of this whole 9-film saga that he was a big part of. Yeah,
I mean, I actually want to read something from, his biggest co-star, which is Harrison Ford. You know, he he made a statement, and it goes, Peter Mayhew was a kind and gentle man, possessed of great dignity and a noble character. These aspects of his own personality, plus his wit and grace, he brought to Chewbacca. We were partners in film and friends in life for over 30 years, and I loved him. He invested his soul into the character and brought a great pleasure to the Star Wars audience. Chewbacca was an important part of the success of the films we made together. He knew how important the fans of the franchise were to his continued success, and he was devoted to them. I and millions of others will never forget Peter and what he gave to us all. My thoughts are with his dear wife, Angie, and his children. Rest easy, my dear friend. Yeah, and that's just, speaks to the... I mean, everybody pretty much has said that, he was just a big, gentle giant. I mean, in his prime, he was 7'3". Mm-hmm. And George Lucas purposely, sought him out because he needed someone taller than Darth Vader. And Darth
which
Vader's
was actually
pretty tall.
Funny because originally he was going... I think David Prowse was going after the Chewbacca role. Mm-hmm. And then he ended up playing Darth Vader, and then, you got Peter Mayhew.
Yeah, and he was just really like an orderly at a hospital.
Yeah.
Before he didn't even quit that job until Return of the Jedi. And then he just started doing Chewbacca, full on. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's really sad to lose one of the Titans, but I am happy that he did get a chance to pass on the mantle of Chewbacca to, and after his first name is Giannis. I won't try to butcher his
last name is... Even the crew and the cast and everybody that works with him can't really pronounce it very well. So,
but he's a talented young man. He's been doing a really good job as playing Chewbacca thus far and picking up the mantle of Peter, because Peter actually trained him on the body language and the subtleties of Chewbacca.
He watched hours and hours of footage.
Yeah,
even stuff that didn't make it into the films. So he was definitely a good understudy, and in fact, he's so good at the role that you almost forget that it isn't Peter Mayhew. It isn't until you see Peter Mayhew doing Chewbacca that you can tell there's some subtle differences. Mm-hmm. But big hand to Jonas for stepping in and taking over such an iconic role and doing such a great job with it.
Yeah, so I guess we have to have that one drink for good old Chewie.
Yep. Here's to Peter Mayhew.
All right.
So what do we got else in the cantina? I know we got some other stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, we're talking about Finn.
Yeah, definitely. So John Boyega, he recently made a mention on some social media that this will be his last go round as Finn.
See, and that's the thing. It's like a lot of times I wonder about stuff like that. I mean, I get it that I don't think that he's purposely trying to, fool anybody or anything like that. But at the same time, it's like, look, is he really saying that because he knows definitively? Or is it one of those things that, it's almost like the way it was with Return of the Jedi. Mm-hmm. A lot of those guys thought it was their last go around. Right. I'm sure Billy D. Williams thought it was his last go around.
Mark Hamill, all those guys.
Mark Hamill. Harrison Ford was hoping it was his last go around.
Right.
So I mean, it's one of those things where, because on the other side of that, you got Kathleen Kennedy saying things like, "No, we're going to continue on with these new characters," and I mean, I don't really know if they're going to pop up in some of the other trilogies like Rian Johnson's trilogy or anything like that. I doubt it, because I think those are all new stories. Mm-hmm. But I mean, could they be new standalone movies? or are we ever going to get an episode 10, 11, and 12?
Well, I think if they did decide to do another, I'm not doing air quotes here, saga film.
Hey, remember, this is a podcast.
Right,
We're not videoing yet.
So, I think if they did another, I don't think they would really. I think they would probably do away with the whole episodic thing, like 10, 11. I think they'll probably just need to start calling it something else.
Because if you think about it,
because that's the whole Skywalker thing.
Well, and it's those movies, right? So it's like it's almost like chapters in a book.
Mm-hmm.
You know, once you're done with the book, you don't go with the next book and say, chapter 57. You know,
right.
I mean?
Exactly. So I think they probably would call it something else. But I mean, I just wonder if he's saying that, and if it's maybe a gaffe on his part of basically telling that Finn doesn't make it out of 9.
Yeah, I don't think that he would be that careless. There is that speculation, though.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I mean, did you ever really think that Finn was going to be one of the characters that dies in 9?
I could see it. I mean,
I could see it, but
it depends on. I mean, once, as we always say, it always depends on the story. But
yeah, I mean, we are flying blind here.
You know, but I think that out of the newer characters, depending on, I think he has at least until we see 9. So far, he really hasn't had much of a story. I mean, outside of the fact that, like, okay, he was a stormtrooper that decided to go rogue, and now he's with the Resistance now.
Yeah,
okay,
story.
End of story.
Well,
but I mean, it's just like
I think what you mean is that
like he doesn't have
it's
true
not a real
raw
deep story.
Well, I mean,
it's
like
more of a surface type of a story.
Well, even just a place. What I'm saying is like, okay, Rey, we can definitely tell she's going to be a Jedi. Like, you saw that. Okay, Poe is already an established fighter pilot. He's in the Resistance. He leads people. That's his role. Finn is just kind of out there.
Well, it's true that but I thought that at the end of The Last Jedi, though, they made his thing a lot more definitive because, you know, he finally accepted who he is. He's taking on. Now, granted, I know he tried to kill himself.
Right, he did try to commit suicide.
So before you bring that up, I'm fully aware that he tried to commit suicide, but after that, after he tried to commit suicide, you know, he definitely was kind of like, you know what, this is who I am. And J.J. Abrams even, and a lot of other people that were involved in 9 actually alluded to the fact that Finn this time really takes on the role. Mm-hmm. And I think that even though it's true, you could make the argument that his story was a little bit more surface, like there wasn't a whole lot of depth to it.
Right.
It's still something we've never seen before. Here's a guy who was a stormtrooper who essentially turns. Mm-hmm. Now, granted, he had more in common, I think, with Han Solo than with anything else. Mm-hmm. Even more so than Poe.
Absolutely.
You know, everybody says that Poe's the new Han Solo, but that's because of the swagger and, you know, all that stuff. But Finn is the one, really, who is more or less out for himself. Mm-hmm. And just trying to, you know, he ends up in these situations where he kind of has to help everybody out.
Yeah, he really doesn't want to be there.
But he doesn't want to be there. You know, what he wants to do is just go off and run away and get as far away from the First Order as possible. And he keeps getting roped back in. Well, much like Han Solo, I think he's finally gone, you know, I'm going to wear this new outfit, which, of course, he does have a new outfit in this movie.
Right.
You know, so I think he's really come to terms with who he is.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that's what I mean, but it remains to be seen. But it just, out of all the characters thus far, I could see him biting the bullet.
Well, at the risk of probably torpedoing what could be an interesting future podcast episode, unless we've already done something like, you know,
it's been a while now.
Yeah, we're at episode 34 now, so we've done a few of these. But who do you think is most likely going to die? I know we've asked that before.
Yeah, we have.
But I don't remember what I said.
Well, of course.
Well, and it could change, you know.
Yeah,
I mean,
it could. I mean,
we didn't have that much information back then.
Definitely, I think if Palpatine is probably really going to die, that's going to be my answer.
Well.
But if we're talking heroes, honestly, like I said, I would probably go with Finn out of everybody, just because I can see him being more of that.
Well, Broom Kid would be my choice.
the sacrifice. He's like that sacrificial lamb that he's always willing to kind of give himself for the greater good. That's kind of his character in a way.
Yeah.
You saw that in Last Jedi. So I think like if it came down to him saving, Rey or Rose or, something like that.
No,
like,
I actually totally agree with you on this one. I think that, he would probably... Did you just hit yourself on the pop filter?
You don't have to tell everybody.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying. But it's funny.
It didn't happen.
Dude, the look on your face was hilarious. Moving on. Now I don't even remember what I was saying. What was I talking about? Finn, right?
Yes, we were talking about Finn, and you actually agree with me before I almost...
Well, naturally, you would would latch onto that one before I pointed out a mistake.
It didn't happen. I don't know what you're talking about.
So Finn...
Yeah, basically,
Well, yeah.
He's the one who would stick up for Rey and Rose, and
he is the one. While I agree that, he's the one that would probably have the least to lose. I guess. I mean, he's the most sacrificable, if that's even a word, really.
Rose could be one too.
Well, that's true, and we just met her, but I don't know. There's more of a nobility, I think.
Yeah.
If Finn sacrificed himself. And I mean, I know we did that. Like, we had a podcast episode, Who Will Die in episode 9 or something like that. Because I remember that episode was based on something that we had read where somebody was saying, like, well, a lot of people are going to die.
Yeah. Because they're going to end this. This is the end of the saga. So it's like
wipe them out. All of them.
Yeah. Everybody must go.
Yeah.
It's like a sale.
I know. Everybody. Well, I mean, I just think that it's one of those things where you could make that argument with Poe too, though, for self-sacrifice. He finally becomes a leader. He's not trying to, prove that he's the best anymore. He's out to do something for the greater good.
Yeah.
But you know what? They always do these like really stupid moves in Star Wars. Like, for instance, I agree with a lot of the fan base that says that it was Admiral Akbar that should have sacrificed himself in The Last Jedi instead of Hodo. It would have been more fitting.
Yeah.
And it would have been a better end for his character than, he just got blown out of his ship or something during that attack.
True. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I definitely
and I mean, because everybody likes Admiral Akbar. I mean, look at all the memes we got from that guy.
Yeah, this for those 2 words.
Yep.
Well, 3 technically.
So I mean, it's like there's certain things that I think that they sometimes miss opportunities. But again, it's who knows how the storytelling is going. I mean, I'm starting to be encouraged that they're actually going back now and they're not making a bunch of movies. They're actually going to plan the next 10 years of Star Wars. When I heard that, I was like, finally.
Yeah, I was overjoyed to hear that.
Yes, let's stress the word plan. Plan the next 10 years.
Yes. To the Marvel Universe, you listen.
Exactly. Well, I mean, given in the next 10 years of Star Wars, I mean, surely we're getting some books.
Yeah.
In fact, they announced a bunch of books.
Yeah, at Celebration.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But what books have you read, though?
Well, Lords of the... Well, you talking about that's already been released, or you talking about the ones that's coming?
Well, I mean, you could have read the ones that are coming.
Well, I thought you were asking which ones I want to read, but ones I've read already.
Well,
so
yeah,
far.
we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a second. I mean, because that's the thing. It's like, because a lot of times, I don't know about you, but I find that sometimes when I'm looking, and I'm not talking about just the books that are like sequels to other ones.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of the ones is, I don't even remember the name of it, but the Treason, I think, the 3rd book in the Thrawn series is coming out like in July or something. So obviously, if you had read the first or second one, you would be looking forward to the 3rd one. But I'm trying to find out, like, okay, based on maybe other books that you've read, and it's kind of piqued your interest, are there any other ones that you might be eager to read based on what's coming out? Or what has maybe just freshly been released? Like, I know one book you're probably looking forward to reading that's out is Master and Apprentice.
Yeah, Master and Apprentice is one I'm definitely eager to read.
And it'll be in our Amazon affiliate link to that book will be in the show notes.
Yes.
So if you guys want to help us support this channel, start buying them books.
Yeah, I mean, Master and Apprentice is really cool just because I love the dynamics between Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. That's always just been fun for me. But like, I think I love like the relationships between the two main characters, kind of like that. So that's why I love Lords of the Sith, because you had Vader and Palpatine, so those two were interesting duo, just seeing them in their own adventure together. Because you really don't really see them together that often, even in the movies. So when you finally read something where they're actually spending an exorbitant amount of time together, you just kind of only can imagine, like, okay, well, what must that be like? Mm-hmm. So even for Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, that's always been the thing for me. Even though we got a chance to see it, in Phantom Menace, it was kind of like, okay, they kind of had something else to do. But
well, it's no different than the Clone Wars animated series, right? That gave you a lot more insight into the Anakin Obi-Wan relationship.
Yeah, and that made Revenge of the Sith like that much more impactful for me, because it's like, man, like over all this time from
because you got to actually experience a lot of their adventures. And
because I mean, you did think about, like, Obi-Wan didn't want Anakin around at first, like in Phantom Menace. He even wanted to be trained. He's like, I don't know. And then, okay, by episode 2, it's like, okay, they've established a bond. And then, of course, during the Clone Wars cartoon series, you really get to see the extent of that.
Absolutely.
By Revenge of the Sith,
a lot of books, because, we're talking about basically, what, well, I mean, in our show notes, we got what new books are you looking forward to reading? But, there's books that are new to us too, right? Like, for instance, I still haven't read the Ahsoka novel yet.
Yeah, I haven't either.
So I mean, in that, I'd be looking forward to reading that one. I don't know. There's like a lot of, the upcoming ones though, obviously Thrawn Treason.
Okay.
Even though I haven't read Thrawn Alliances yet. But
isn't there a Dooku book coming out too? I think there's a Count Dooku book that's.
I think that might be like much later. I mean, from what they've got Alphabet Squadron,
right,
which should be a really interesting book. There is a book called it's a young adult novel called A Crash of Fate, and that one, that's falling under the Galaxy's Edge. Mm-hmm. Because there's a couple one. There's also Galaxy's Edge Black Spire, which is really interesting because it seems like they're taking this theme park concept and they're turning that into a whole story arc.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of novels coming out. Then you have Star Wars, the Skywalker saga, which I basically think it's funny because it's going to tell the stories of episodes 1 through 8, but through Anakin, Luke, Leia, and Rey's points of view. That could be really interesting.
Actually, yeah.
And that sort of reminds me of the book From a Certain Point of View, which is funny because you would think that that's where we got our title from, but it wasn't.
Yeah, it was actually from...
our segment title actually was before.
Yeah, it's from Obi-Wan.
Yeah. But they actually came out with a book called From a Certain Point of View, which what they did was they took a bunch of different stories, some that were familiar and some that were newer, but from the point of view of certain characters.
Right. Because even most people don't even realize, like, if you watch the original trilogy, especially the original trilogy, but even the prequels are told through the eyes of the droids, and most people don't realize that. Exactly.
And not to mention the fact that, even this concept isn't really terribly new anyway, because if you look at The Lost Stars, mm-hmm. I mean, that's essentially looking at the events of, well, I mean, it starts just after episode 2, I believe, and then it goes all the way up through after Return of the Jedi, through these two young, this young woman and young man, and you basically are seeing the whole story of episodes 2 through 7.
Yeah, through their eyes.
It comes up right before Force Awakens. Yeah, through their eyes. So
you see how it impacts them and what they think about everything. Yeah.
So, I mean, I there's a lot of books, and, you know, they keep announcing books as time goes on, too. So there's a lot of them, you know, and then, of course, all the comic books that are out. Like, I'm reading that whole Darth Vader Dark Vision series.
Yeah, I got to get into that one because you were just explaining that to me. Yeah.
Like, all 3 of them. Because the whole concept of it, what it is it's basically a series of how other people are viewing Darth Vader in various situations. So in the first episode, the one where he's like on a horse and, you know, almost like a medieval type of a situation.
It's like Darth Vader meets Game of Thrones.
Yeah. He basically crash lands on a planet or something, and it's like these people, because he's attacking this beast and all these things that have been attacking them for like decades, they see him as a hero. So they're trying to put him up as a hero, which he very much isn't during this time period. You know, and it keeps following through that. You know, the 3rd issue that I just read, you know, is that very controversial issue that came out about how this girl falls in love with him, and it doesn't end very well for her. Spoiler alert. You know, it's stuff like that. It's a very weird series, though. It's different. It's written differently. It's illustrated a little bit differently. And it's a little bit one of those, like, kind of outside.
Yeah, out of the box.
Yeah, a little bit. But what about you guys? What books are you interested in reading? You know, let us know in the comments section on YouTube. Let us, you know, hit us up on Facebook and Twitter at headtoheadsw. Email us, Star Wars at headtoheadswpodcast.com, and let us know, definitely, what you guys are reading. You know, what's good. Is there anything that you guys have read lately, Star Wars related, or, hey, even not Star Wars related, that you guys think is really cool? Let us know. All right, what do we got next?
All right, our next segment is Duel of the Fates. All right, so this week, I have a bit of a challenging one for us.
Uh-oh.
Now, this is dealing with box office. So who's going to reign at the box office?
So we're sticking strictly to box office on this.
This box office.
All right.
Between The Rise of Skywalker and Avengers Endgame. Now, Avengers Endgame, like in 3 days, made like $1 billion.
Mm-hmm.
So does episode 9 have that capability? Do you think episode 9 will have that capability? Or do you think Avengers will still top that? Why or why not?
Well, it's one of those things where I get into these conversations all the time, especially with Marvel fans. But even general movie fans, you know, when they find out, oh, you're doing a Star Wars podcast or whatever, you know, and then, you know, first of all, it's like I try to tell people there's 2 sides that you can take to this that directly relate to box office. Now, first of all, I think that the overall viewpoint of even the studios is probably not, simply because The Last Jedi, although it made a boatload of money, and it really wasn't that far behind The Force Awakens, really, and it made over $2 billion. Mm-hmm. But the problem is that it caused such a
rift.
Yeah, a rift in the Star Wars fan base that a lot of people think that that's what hurt Solo, which is, we've talked about in the past, what hurt Solo was nobody wanted Solo.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's been a really good reaction, I think, to Episode 9's trailer.
Yes.
And I think the more marketing that we get from it will tell us more if that's possible. But I've always said that the Marvel movies appeal to a wider audience than the Star Wars films do, and that's by design.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because first of all, one of the arguments that I usually use, especially when it comes to the Avengers movies, every character in the Avengers has had their own movie, which means it has their own fan base.
Right.
So when you put them all together, you're getting all these fan bases
Meeting
converge.
Yep.
You know, it's not like in Star Wars, everybody has had their own movie. I mean, it was starting to go that way. But I mean, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, not to mention the fact that, you know, in the comic book world, you've had 50 years of these heroes, you know, coming out at different stages, obviously. Some are older than others.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, these things have been around a while. And they're based on source material. And I know there's been people who have argued, you know, that's kind of a lame excuse or whatever. But it's true. I mean, Star Wars came from the mind of this one guy who then created this thing and got a team together. Which, by the way, that little team he put together revolutionized movies.
Yep.
Industrial Light and Magic.
Mm-hmm.
Then he created THX Sound.
Yep.
Then he actually had a hand in building the first digital projectors. And, you know, so I mean, this guy is not exactly a slouch when it comes to the way we view movies. In fact, you wouldn't have Marvel movies if it weren't for George Lucas, because he's the one that pioneered a lot of this stuff.
True.
So... But I digress. I mean, given the fact, do I think that it could? Yeah, I think there's a possibility, but a lot of it's going to depend on the marketing behind it.
So, based on the marketing, in your opinion, since we don't know, since we're just now getting...
Yeah, we're just now getting into it.
Episode 9 stuff with the trailer. What did Marvel do right as far as marketing for Endgame?
They came out with Infinity Wars last year.
I knew you were going to say that.
Well,
yeah.
This time I'm not actually joking.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
like,
it makes perfect sense.
Usually I always throw those, everybody knows me, I always throw those like little jokes. But it's a direct sequel to it.
Yeah.
More so even than the whole Last Jedi and Force Awakens thing. Even though that's true too, there was a 2-year gap between those. Because if you really look at the Endgame's marketing, it really wasn't all that huge.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was like they're still riding the crest of Infinity Wars. And, you know, the other thing, again, there's enough comic book fans out there. There's enough people who are aware of that story arc that they basically had to market to the casual movie fan. And here's another difference, by the way, between the Star Wars franchise and the Marvel franchise. The Marvel franchise, where they're brilliant, is their marketing is all the standalone films that lead up to the next ones.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, you know, it's people are like, oh, well, they didn't have a really big commercial for it. Well, sure they did. They had Ant-Man and Wasp. They had Captain Marvel. They had all these movies that essentially in some way affect the story arc of the upcoming film.
True.
So even though I thought that the Endgame, that first trailer they did, was really good in the sense of it gave you this overwhelming sense of dread that continued from Infinity Wars, and they didn't really give you any clue as to how they were going to resolve it. But yet they still, you know, generated excitement for the film.
Yeah. I think, for me, I mean, I think that if Star Wars has a chance, but I think it's going to have to do something different in order to hit that type of mark, like like in Endgame. You're absolutely correct that, you know, Infinity Wars definitely promoted Endgame just by the sense of how it ended. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really what people were, and I think that's why a lot of people were feeling the way they felt about Last Jedi, because you got a lot of stuff in Infinity Wars that you wanted, and it was, and the thing about Infinity Wars with Marvel is that you do have source material for it. You know, like, okay, these were actual comics that people
exactly
have read. So it's like all you do is just translate that to the screen in some way, shape, or form, and there you go, because people are kind of already are expecting this.
Well, you know, you bring up The Last Jedi, and there is another thing that they could do. If they do this one thing, Disney's listening, this would be a good idea. If they really wanted to guarantee a lot of box office for it, all they have to do in their marketing is show that it's completely different from The Last Jedi.
Or they could have put...
Which they kind of do anyway.
Or they could have put a scene at the end of Endgame.
Yeah, right. The end credit scene's like a Star Wars thing.
Hilarious. But no, I mean, I think that for Rise of Skywalker to kind of hit that mark, one, I think the story has to be rock solid.
Oh, yeah.
Hands down, rock solid. You have to have pertinent action where it's needed. Like, it has to be like, wow. Because I think that's what's going, because the thing is when that hits the theaters for even the premiere, if everybody's coming out like, holy crap, Rise of Skywalker is freaking amazing. I think that's what's going to happen. Like, if you have that type of like everybody, and it has to be consistent. It has to be like everybody's like, yo, this right here. They
were like that with The Force Awakens.
Yeah, it was kind of like that with The Force Awakens. But I mean, I think with this, though, I think it really has to kind of like... Well,
that's like I said. It's got to show... Point. But look at it this way, right? I mean, you have all these people who are super confident about this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's easy to be super confident about the movie going into it when it's following up The Force Awakens.
Right.
Or even Rogue One.
Mm-hmm.
If you're still this confident after The Last Jedi and Solo, I think that's a really good clue that these people aren't the least bit apprehensive about it. The people that are making this movie are not only are they not apprehensive, they're basically saying, you guys are going to be totally satisfied. You guys are going to be blown away.
Mm-hmm.
And by some of the things that I've seen in the trailer, I can get behind that a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's what's going to, and like you said, the marketing for this is going to have to be.
Yeah, that's going to have to be what's spot on.
Yeah. Now, I think with Infinity Wars, it left you with something. Like, it kind of, after Thanos snapped those fingers, man, and you start seeing people like disappearing, it kind of left everybody in the theater with that kind of like, whoa moment. Well, and I think with Last Jedi, you didn't necessarily, I mean, you had it, but it was kind of like, it was weird because you kind of had Luke disappearing.
But again, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that you have all these peripheral movies around it. Because the first thing I guarantee you, I know I was, but I guarantee that most people were thinking, well, wait, Spider-Man disappears. Well, how's that going to affect the next Spider-Man movie? And, it's like you have this thread of all these peripheral movies around the main one. And again, this is what we always talked about. The brilliance of Marvel was they had this plan.
Right.
Okay, we're going to release all these movies and then Avengers, and that's going to be the end of Phase 1. And then Phase 2 comes along, and then it's going to end with, the Age of Ultron. And then, so it's almost like the Avengers movies are like
the bookends.
Yeah, the bookends
to the phases.
Each of the phases. And then all the other movies basically tie into each other. They tie into that. You have, characters making cameos in the other standalone films. If Star Wars had just done that from the very beginning, and they were doing okay with Force Awakens and then Rogue One, it's like, okay, if they do more to tie in the canon and they do stuff like that, I think they'll be fine.
Yeah.
But what about you guys? I mean, you've heard us. What do you guys think? You think Rise of Skywalker has a chance to beat Avengers Endgame at the box office?
Yeah.
Or is it just, are they going to suffer the fate of the Last Jedi, where it's just going to be a few of us fans in the Falcon talking about what a great film it was? Let us know at HeadToHeadSW on Twitter or Facebook. Oh, and also hit us up on Instagram at HeadToHeadSW. Show us some pictures. Keep it clean, though.
Yes.
All right, what do we got?
Next, we have From a Certain Point of View.
Our feature topic.
So, this week, we're going to talk about Mysteries of the Mandalorian. What to expect.
You know, that sounds like a really good book.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does.
Should write that.
I know.
I don't know how to write. Never mind. But
so what, we're talking about basically like what we think we can expect from the Mandalorian TV series?
Yeah, I mean, because we got to like, you know, I'm kind of wondering some things because, you know, they kind of cut us out for those of us who were watching the stream.
Yeah, we had to watch these really weird bootleg videos of
right.
people shooting the screen at Celebration.
Yeah, with their phone and whatnot.
That's our trailer. I think they actually finally, I might be wrong, but because, you know, some of these are pretty good, but I think they may have actually officially released some of that footage.
Yeah, I mean,
but either way, we've seen it.
Yeah, we've seen it, and I think that, you know, I think they have a great cast. First of all,
oh, they got a phenomenal cast.
They have an awesome cast. So I'm just wondering, like, okay, well, one, it seems like there's a lot of secrecy behind it a little bit.
Yeah, I know. I
almost
think that's
like episode
strange.
9 is. Yeah,
it really is weird,
and that's what's making me kind of like. That's why I call it the Mysteries of the Mandalorian, because it's like, why the secrecy so much?
Because I think it's the first Star Wars TV show. Like live action TV show.
Right.
And they want to keep a little bit of mystique about that. And I think that they're just trying to build up some anticipation so when it drops, because, you know, once they do that, I mean, you got Galaxy's Edge coming out in May, and then it goes like to Disney World, I think, in like August or something. Then a month after that, you have Disney Plus premiering along with The Mandalorian. And then shortly after that, you're going to have Rise of Skywalker. I think that they're just trying to really ramp up to this big blitz of a ton of product.
Because I was wondering, like, okay, are they just not trying to take any media attention from the Rise of Skywalker? Because you got two kind of, I don't want to say they're competing, because one is a movie, one is a series,
and the other thing
from the
too
same property.
Well, and then you also have the Clone Wars coming out too. I don't remember when that is exactly, but
yeah, we don't think we got a date on that yet.
Maybe not.
But I think that, you know, with them coming out back to back, you know, you got like Mandalorian in November, and then the next month you got Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, well, which one do you push harder as far as marketing?
Well, they're two different things, though.
True.
You hit the nail on the head. They're two different mediums. I think you can hit them equally as hard because, you know, all right, go ahead and in November, you know, spend some time watching this TV show and then get your butts in the theater and go see this movie.
Yeah.
You know, and depending on how they can do it, it's going to be interesting to see what the overall tone. I mean, we got a little bit of a hint of it and the storyline and, you know, what's going on, but it's really going to be interesting to see once you can see the whole series, the overall story arc and how everything's going to play out.
Now, with everything we've seen thus far, so when it comes to television, everything has been animated.
Right.
Even though, and it's taking place in different time periods.
Oh, absolutely.
So, but do you think that releasing The Mandalorian before Rise of Skywalker might throw casual fans off because they're like, okay, as far as the time period, you know, because you had like Last Jedi, and then we jumped around to Solo, which went backwards. And
well, you know what? We talked about, right.
And then now you got something that's right up against Rise of Skywalker at the same time. Do you think people might get confused?
Nope, because you can look at Marvel as an example. You had Captain Marvel come out like a couple of months before Infinity Wars. And those are both movies, by the way. Not Infinity Wars, Endgame. And those are both movies. True. And yet the timeline is like 20 years in between. So, I mean, and add to the fact that the only people that are going to see The Mandalorian, first of all, it's not like it's on channel, you know, like ABC or something.
Right.
I mean, it's actually, you have to subscribe to this service in order to even see it. Mm-hmm. And I have a feeling that a lot of the early adopters of Disney Plus are going to get it because they want to see The Mandalorian. And I think that because it's so vastly different, I don't necessarily think it's actually going to confuse anybody. See, I think that Rogue One, when it was coming out before The Last Jedi, and it's the first standalone, so it's the first time we saw a non-saga film in the theater, I think that that had more of a chance of throwing off some casual fans.
Yeah.
I think the biggest danger for casual fans is they won't even know the Mandalorian's out.
Okay.
I don't think it's so much of a confusion thing.
Okay.
But we'll have to see.
So, even going to the Mandalorian, so we know it's kind of like an old West, old samurai kind of style show. Kind of gritty. What do you think are going to be some things that people are looking for from Mandalorian?
I think primarily they're just going to be looking for a good story, something that makes sense to them. And just something, I don't necessarily think that people are coming in with really heavy expectation. I think if anything, the only thing that The Last Jedi and Solo have taught us is that it used to be that people thought as long as you slap the Star Wars logo on anything, it's just going to automatically sell.
Yeah, it's going to go over with people.
Yeah. And to a degree, that was true when George Lucas was the one making it all. Mm-hmm. Because what you had, whether you liked his stories or not, there was a uniformity to it. Whereas now you have all these different people coming in and doing their thing and essentially playing in the Star Wars sandbox. And I think what's happening is that people got so excited about it. Like, finally, we can have other people bringing their ideas into this and hopefully improving on them. But you got to bring the right people in.
Right.
Now, I think what's going to happen is because you got, as one of the, producers or whatever, with Dave Filoni, you're going to get the animated series fans on board immediately. And I think that their expectations are just going to be along the lines of what we've seen in the animated series we have thus far. Good stories, stuff that makes sense, enriches the canon, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm. I just always think about this and how hilarious this is that you got Jon Favreau, who was actually in Marvel movies, but then he's actually doing Star Wars stuff, though. Yeah. Like, that's hilarious.
Yeah, he did like Iron Man.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah, he plays Happy.
Mm-hmm. And I believe, didn't he direct them as well?
Which one? The Iron Man movies?
Yeah.
I think so.
Pretty sure. If only I had a device where I can look that up, right?
But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is, and he's also a huge Star Wars fan, and that's the thing. If you get these guys that are really huge Star Wars fans, but who are super talented people, I think that you can't go wrong because, again, and I've said this a million times, the Star Wars universe is rich with potential for good stories and good character development. Just absolutely rich. And I'm even saying, like, if you don't even create any new characters, right? If you just only limited yourself with the characters that have been established in the prequel, original, and sequel trilogies, that alone, you can just mine tons of different ones.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you're absolutely right that you actually have to get like real Star Wars fans to really get behind this stuff. I mean, like JJ, And by the way, to answer your question, yes, Jon Favreau did do Iron Man.
Okay, I thought so. Wasn't sure though.
However, but yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. I think you got to get people who really understand Star Wars and the Star Wars universe. And I think that's why fans are so happy because you have someone who's basically like, George Lucas Jr. with, Dave Filoni. And then now you have Jon Favreau, who's also a huge Star Wars fan, a part of this. I think that's what people are really just hankering to see. And of course, like you said, it's the first live action thing. And it's actually cool. I mean, I'm glad that they're actually going to take a realm that hasn't been explored.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's what the thing is too, is that, okay, you don't have to worry about Sith and Jedi and all that type of stuff because now you're starting to dabble into other things and then people get real particular about. But now when you're doing the whole Mandalorian thing, it's kind of expansive in the whole underworld. You can kind of do
well,
stuff.
you can go anywhere now.
Yeah, you can kind of go anywhere.
It's not
do anything.
limited to a certain area or anything. I mean, you can literally go anywhere. You can do anything. You know, you're dealing. And I think the other thing, too, is that being that it's a more down to earth, you can almost, I mean, who knows? Some of these episodes can almost be like crime dramas. You know, I mean, you can actually make this a little bit less fantasy science fiction.
Yeah.
You know, and a little bit more dramatic and
yeah, it's kind of like
earthy, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of like a down to earth. Like, okay, all these people, all these other quote unquote superpowers are over here.
Yeah,
but then you have us normal people who just have to. It's like Gotham.
Yeah,
exactly. It's kind of like Gotham. How Gotham.
And it kind of reminds me of that.
Yeah,
actually, and it's
like a Star Wars version of Gotham.
And I think that that's what one of the things, and I think that that's going to draw a lot of people. Actually, I think what it's going to do is create more casual fans.
Mm-hmm. Who might want to explore Star Wars even more because they want
or
other
even
stuff
come
like
into
that.
the Star Wars universe brand new. But it's
that's
like,
what I mean.
Okay,
yeah, like okay.
This isn't so like stupid to me.
Yeah,
but, you know, that's part of the problem. You know, all these like laser swords and people shooting lightning and all that, just kind of dopey to me. I mean, the people that feel that way, you know, that are more, it's kind of like, okay, you know, if you're into some of these like crime dramas that are on TV or, you know, whatever, it's like, okay, yeah, they're wearing a little bit of weird armor or whatever, but I can get into this.
Yeah.
I think it's actually going to get people who wouldn't normally get into Star Wars. They might get into it, you know, for this.
Definitely.
So, I mean, you know, what do you guys think? You guys think that this could be like the thing that turns a lot of Star Wars fans around as far as, you know, how they feel about the whole saga or the whole franchise, really? You know?
Let us know why you're so excited about The Mandalorian, too.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, hit us up on Facebook and Twitter at HeadSW, you know, Instagram. Email us.
Carrier pigeon.
Yep. Say whatever you want in the comments section. See, we don't moderate stuff. And with that,
no, we do not.
Let's go to our next segment, which of course has always been one of my favorites, where we answer your questions, and we just call it Clear Your Mind. All right, our first question comes from a somewhat irate person who wrote on our Facebook page. If you guys want to actually check out something interesting, go to Head to Head SW on Facebook and check out this whole thread from this guy named Jamie Chapman. I think it's a guy.
Yeah, I believe so.
What does Jamie have to say?
Well, the censored version is...
And hey, he confirmed that he doesn't really listen to the podcast, so I think we're safe.
Yeah. How is the sequel trilogy about the Skywalkers, especially when Luke and Leia aren't even in the movie that long?
Well, I mean, the interesting thing that I also had to note is this guy's like commenting on the whole. He's asking us, which is kind of cool. At least he feels like
comfortable enough to
comfortable that we can answer it. But it's like, dude, you're not even listening to our podcast. Why are you busting our chops for liking Star Wars? But it's funny that we bring this up today, and I actually had to look up some of the books. Because it's that book that I was talking about where it talks about the point of view of episodes 1 through 8 to the point of view of Anakin and, you know, Rey and all these others. The book is called The Skywalker Saga. And it's talking about episodes 1 through 8. So, Jamie, buddy, Lucasfilm themselves calls this 1 through 8, well, 9 really, but, you know, they can't put that in the book yet because it's not out.
Well, the 9 is called The Rise of Skywalker.
Well, yeah. And
we're still talking about them.
We're still talking about them. And it's a sequel trilogy movie. I mean, look, you guys, I don't know, you can let us know what you think. But anybody who doesn't understand that episodes 1 through 9 is about the Skywalkers, the overall arc of the Skywalkers. I mean, just because somebody's not in the movie, I mean, you can make that argument about anything.
Yeah, I mean, I really think that, you know, if you really look at it, they still have a presence and it's still continuing their story just from different characters.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's all that's really
it.
happening.
Look, and you guys can read, what I said to Jamie too, because he's not a troll, so don't start beating up on him, even though he does.
Yes, play nicely.
He does start getting a little bit almost disrespectful there, even when our good friend Dave Cossey weighed in, and then he just went after Dave, and it's just kind of like, okay, this guy's getting a little out of control, and I was actually going to either block him or moderate him or do something. But then, I don't know, something hit me where I was kind of like, you know what? I just get this vibe that this guy's not trying to troll the page. I think he's really, like, our responses were probably making him more angry because he's one of those guys that he used to love Star Wars and it disappointed him. Mm-hmm. And he's angry about that.
Yeah, and rightfully so. I get it.
I mean, I get it too. And I even told him in a lot of my responses, look, man, I understand. I'm not saying that the franchise is perfect. It's just that.
But his particular question, though.
Yeah, that question that spawned it all. And he had actually gotten off on a lot of other tangents. It's like, well, wait a minute, man. I thought you were just trying to find out about the whole Skywalker thing. But yeah, about that. Just because Luke and Leia aren't in the movie that long, it's kind of like you were saying, their presence is felt throughout. I mean, the whole thing is about the quest to find Luke.
Yeah, I mean, and then, of course, like, Rey is spending an exorbitant amount of time with Luke.
Yeah, and Luke has a pretty big presence.
Right.
And Kylo, even though, yeah, he's a Solo, he's also by blood a Skywalker.
Yep.
It's like, I just don't understand how anybody can look at episodes 7 and 8 and not get that there's a pretty big Skywalker story arc happening in this.
Well, and you got to really understand, it's just like, okay, just to kind of break it down for Jamie if he decides to listen to this. But it's like, okay, Rey's in search for Luke. She finds Luke. She wants Luke to train her. Okay, then after that, then Luke is basically telling her about his failure as a Jedi Master and what happened with Kylo. Kylo even had to bring it up to Rey, like, hey, yeah, I bet he didn't tell you this part. And she's like, yeah, he did tell me. And then on top of that, Yoda had to come back and remind Luke about, hey, this is what, this is who you are. This is what happens. It's happened to the best of us, but you can't be afraid to pass on everything you learn. So it's all about still growth within the Skywalker family.
Oh, and then let's go back to even episode 7, where Kylo Ren, a person who has Skywalker blood in him, is trying to be like his grandfather, Anakin Skywalker.
Right.
I mean, it's like, and then, of course, Snoke is trying to find the next replacement for a Skywalker. It's like how you can say that this is not the Skywalker saga.
Yeah.
To me, your opinions are almost completely invalid if you come to me and say that this is not a Skywalker story. That the sequel trilogy isn't a Skywalker story when you have Luke Skywalker in like probably 70% of the second film in the sequel trilogy.
Right.
Okay. Moving on.
So, with that being said, we're going to move on to our next question, which comes from Mary Sutton. Her question is, do you think Rise of Skywalker will answer the question of who is Maz and what her role is in all of this?
I do, only because they keep bringing Maz back into it. Like, if she hadn't been in The Last Jedi at all, I would have said, okay, she was just there sort of as a storytelling device in 7. Mm-hmm. But the fact that they actually put her in the film to essentially remind us that she was around. The other thing is, if Colin Trevorrow were still doing 9, I would be like, oh, that's kind of iffy, but it's JJ. JJ
created Maz.
He created Maz. Maz was his character. Mm-hmm. So I think that a lot of things that JJ's going to do is to basically either continue or complete the stories that he started.
Yeah, and I think that, she's kind of one of those guides almost. Like, she's kind of an odd kind of guide to kind of...
Well, she's kind of like the sequel trilogy's Yoda in a sense, even though Yoda did make an appearance.
Right. It's just you kind of wonder, like, now with Luke being around to kind of guide Rey, it's like, okay, is there a need for Maz in this? And I'm sure.
Well, that whole thing where, what are you doing with Luke's lightsaber? Oh, that's a story for another time. It's like she's got a lot of information that I think is actually going to be needed, to know that these characters are going to need to know for 9. Right. And especially if Palpatine is really back and, all this other stuff. It's like, I think she's going to be a key to... Yeah,
because she's lived through it all. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, is the fact that she was around, through the formation of the Empire and, its reign. So...
she actually reminds me... In some cases, she reminds me a lot of the Guinan character in Star Trek The Next Generation.
I was thinking that too. Yeah, exactly.
It's almost that same kind of thing. So I think that she really does have a lot to offer. So hopefully we'll find out.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for our show this week. As always, you guys can hit us up on Facebook and Twitter. At HeadToHeadSW, let us know your thoughts about this episode or anything you guys might want us to cover in the future. Or if you have a question you want to submit to the Clear Your Mind segment, you can definitely do it there. Hit us up on Instagram. Leave a comment in the YouTube comment section. Well, I almost screwed that one up. Just basically in general, get in touch with us and let us know what you guys think. We love discussing Star Wars.
Just find us.
Exactly. Yeah, just find us. Just Google search us. All right. Well, I'm Eric Vansel.
I'm Daryl Sanders.
May the Force be with you.
Always.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at HeadToHeadSW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at headtoheadswpodcast.com. Until next time, may the Force be with you, always.